hug him or what. I don't know what he was like, and I was going to do there. I know y'all can see us when we're moving around up here. We act like you can't see us, but we know you can, so we try not to make it too weird, okay? Good morning. Boy, I am so glad to see you guys here today. This is the last day of Be Rich, and we are really pumped about this because Be Rich is an opportunity for us to just kind of highlight something that is a part of the DNA of our church, and that is to give, serve, and love. I actually want to go back and to highlight that just a little bit. And if we were thinking about Be Rich, you think of these three words, and you saw that on a lot of shirts here today. So let's first think Be Rich, and then we think give, serve, and love. Say those words with me. Give, serve, and love. Those three things are really a part of who we are. And when we say give, we're talking just about a heart of generosity, a heart that's willing to share. When there's need, we respond. When there's a need in someone else's life individually, it's not necessarily left up to the whole body. We end up deciding to do that on our own individually sometimes. And so it's so important, so vital that as a part of our church that we are responding to the needs around us because it's critical. Now, I want to say this to you. When we think of serving is not just on Sunday morning. Serving is a heart that happens all the time. So when we're living our life, this should be a heartbeat inside us that we're here to serve. We wake up in the morning ready to serve. We're ready to go. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's why Jesus came. Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve. And so we want to do everything we can to honor him and to follow his example. But then when we talk about love, and around here we talk about love in a couple of ways. Loving each other, inside these walls and as a part of the church when we are together, but also when we're out, we're taking care of each other, and so that's very, very important. Great way to do that here is to get connected in a community group. We really encourage you to do that. But then the other idea, though, is very important. Loving is a way that we invest in people's lives, and that's really what we're going to talk about a lot today. We're going to talk about that idea, that concept of loving other people and how we do that by investing in their lives. And you might say, Greg, you are a broken record when it comes to this. And that's right, I am, because Jesus was a broken record. All right? He talked about it all the time. This was his main statement of his ministry was loving other people. That was the way that you actually show that you love God, the way that you show that you mean business, the way that you show that you truly are a follower of Jesus by the way you love other people. And unfortunately, I think that many times the church has kind of resorted to leading with hard truth so much that people get turned off by the way we respond to them and the way we interact with them, that they don't see the love of Jesus. They see judgment from Jesus, and they see judgment mainly from us. And so we have to be very, very careful. We don't want that to be the case. We want to show them that going far beyond just the truth, there's grace that God offers. And so we're here today to make sure we reemphasize this because I'm excited about the next series we're going to be going through because it's going to help us in troubled times. How do you live? So the series title starting next Sunday is called Buckle Up. We're going through the book of 1 Peter. I'm going to be there for a while. So I'm excited about that. We haven't done that in a long time, and so we're going to go right through it and talk about how we can buckle up for this life and be ready for what God brings our way. So I have a big question to ask you as we start to go into this and we start to ask the questions again. And, I love to start with questions because it gets us to thinking and everything. So this is a question I've asked you before. If you've been here, if you're new today, wow, I am so glad you're here. Welcome. I hope you'll feel like you belong here and want to stick around. But the question is this: do you believe in Jesus or do you believe Jesus? The idea of believing in Jesus, you can believe in something or that something existed or that someone existed, even that their life was good and that there were good things about it, but do you believe Jesus? When he said what he did about us and about him and about our relationship with him and about the world and about all the things that are principles in this life and things that we might live by, do you believe Jesus when he said those things? When he said the things about how he felt about each one of us, how he felt about you and me? Do you believe Jesus when he said those things? Do you believe Jesus when he would tell you this is the way that you would actually live your life? Do you believe Jesus or do you just believe in him? You believe he existed? Okay, great. I kind of pull Jesus out every week on Sunday. I come to church, kind of Jesus-fy it, whatever you want to call it. Kind of put Jesus all over everything that day, but then the rest of the week it's kind of like, you put him away because it's inconvenient. Because his teachings tell us that there's some inconvenience to following him, okay? It's just plain and simple. It's not something you can just live however you want to and then actually say that you're a follower or disciple of Jesus. Matter of fact, we have been looking at this one verse from Matthew chapter 16, verse 24, and we've looked at it each week, and we pulled one phrase out every time we've looked at it, and this is what this verse says. Then Jesus said to his disciples, saying to the people who were following him, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. This is an important part because he says if you want to be a disciple, if you want to be regarded as somebody who follows Jesus, you have him in your life, first of all, that you believe in him, but you believe him. You actually believe him so much so that that's a part of your life. You're going to do that. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves first, then take up their cross, and then today we talk about this one, follow me. That's what Jesus said. So let me break it down for those three phases, what they really mean, what they're about, and what they're supposed to be saying. First of all, the deny themselves, if a disciple is going to deny themselves, then a disciple denies themselves by putting the needs of others ahead of their own. They put the needs of other people ahead of their own. That means you set aside. It doesn't mean that you have to give up eating so everybody else around you eats, okay? But it does mean that if you see someone in need or you see someone who is in desperate need of encouragement or someone to point them to Jesus, someone who will actually, you see someone who's really looking for answers, they're in search, and you know that Jesus is the answer because Jesus was the answer for you. You see that in their life. Then you put their needs ahead of your own. You try to meet them where they are, and then you reveal to them who your hope is and how your hope is a part of that. That's what denying yourself is. It's setting aside you being important and making someone else important. I heard this recently, that a measure of humility in someone's life is when you know they're humble by the way they are interested in you. You ever talk to somebody and all they talk about is themselves? Get the idea? But when you talk to someone and they're interested in you, they want to know about you, you know they are setting themselves aside not to look important or look better or try to build themselves up in front of you. No, they don't need that. Jesus is building them up. And so what do? See? Get the idea? Then not only deny themselves, but take up the cross. And this means that you're willing to make sacrifices for what is best. Whatever the best scenario would be in a circumstance or a situation, you know that you're willing to make a sacrifice to make that happen. So in other words, I again heard it stated this way. Even just this week, I was at a conference with a lot of student ministry workers and children's workers and pastors, and it was great to hear this kind of statement made that if we're going to go into the lives of other people, we have to take Jesus with us. And so when you take up your cross, you are literally taking up Jesus and you're carrying him and who he is, what he stands for, everything he's done in your life. You pick him up and you carry him with you into that circumstance or that situation. That means everywhere you go, all right? Everywhere you go. And yes, that means while you're standing on the sideline watching a flag football game with your little grandson, and somebody on the field right there is not acting like Jesus. I experienced that last week, and I can tell you, they're not acting like Jesus, but my response to them must be that I carry Jesus with me as I interact with that person. See, no matter if they do or not, the point is they'll never see Jesus unless I carry Jesus with me to them. And that's what it means to take up your cross. But then the other part is following. And then following means willing to be led. I think sometimes we think being a follower of Jesus means that we're going to get out there and lead the way and show everybody why they're wrong and why they're all... No! We actually come in behind Jesus and we allow him to be the one that we lead with, all right? We go into their life, and as we approach them, we don't approach them as Greg or whoever you are. You don't approach them that way. You approach them as if you are Jesus, the hands and feet of Jesus, and you are following him into the situation. Because guess what? No matter where you are, Jesus is already ahead of you. See, Jesus is already ahead of you. And so you may be thinking, I can't deal with this person. I can't deal with this relationship. There's no way in the world I could invest in this person's life. The only way I would do that is if I was willing then to be led by Jesus into that situation. You know what? Those situations where you see where you don't want to go into, Jesus is already there. He's expecting you to say, aren't you following me? Come on, let's go. You said you were going to follow me, right? Come on, let's go. And a lot of us are like, but not there. Anywhere but there. But you don't, but come on, they need this. They're the ones I laid down on the cross to die for. Remember, you're kind of the one doing this. But I'll go with, I'm already here, so come on over. Come on over, I want to introduce you to. That's Jesus, see. And we miss that many times because we don't like the inconvenience of it all. I just say this. Followers of Jesus, they're willing. I want to take you to this statement. Followers of Jesus are willing to be inconvenienced for something greater than themselves. We mentioned this last week. And can I just say, last week we said we would love to see 100 people sign up, and between the first ask was to say, be a part of the You Got Served teams, and then adding on to that amount of people that signed up were over, I don't even know where it is now, all right? I should have looked right before I came up, but the number continues to increase. Last week, over 70 people signed up to work with the next generation at this church. That applause had better be for Jesus, because I've never seen that happen ever in this place. That was his hand working in people's lives to bring them to a point to realize. We're going to have that meeting right after this, between this service, between the two services today, and then next Sunday, if you can't make it to this one, you come to the one next week. But if you're here today, please just come to this one, all right? That's where we need you. Because we've got to get moving. There's a lot of things to be done with the next generation. And I tell you, you realize between the two, 70 plus, and it's well over 120 people who signed up to be involved. That's nuts, all right? That's nuts. That tells me that you're eager and that you're excited and that you want to be a part of what God is doing, all right? As a pastor, it's a little hard. I've had to fight some pride this week here a little bit because I'm really proud of you. But I'm really proud of what God has done. I'm proud of him and his work in your life and how you've responded to that. If you weren't here last week, plenty of time to sign up. You've got about 30 minutes, all right? Okay, it's really great. But listen, this is an important part of this. We're willing to be inconvenienced. We don't have time, but it's time to make time to do the things God's calling us. Because this statement, Jesus leads his disciples to invest in the lives of others. That's what he does. To follow Jesus, you invest. All right? Following Jesus isn't just about learning everything. It is about acting on that learning. You need to learn. You need to understand God's word. You need to understand how to pray. If you don't do that, you won't have the equipment you need when you serve and when you love other people and when you invest in their lives. But let me just say this. If that's all you do is learn, some of us, we pray for people to go and serve in the church. We need to be the answer to that prayer. And serve in the lives of other people. We need to be the answer. So it goes on. I want to tell you a story this morning that comes right from Scripture. It's from a book that most of us don't know, but I want to show you this story briefly, and then we have an incredible story for you to see about what investing looks like in someone's life. It comes from the book of Philemon. It's a small letter that Paul wrote to a man, Philemon, who was a businessman and a believer in Jesus, a strong believer in Jesus. This is believing in Jesus as the resurrected Lord. And so here's how the story goes. And I'm just going to kind of go through. I'm not reading every verse of the small letter. It only has one chapter. All right? So if somebody tells you to turn to Philemon chapter 3, you won't be able to. Okay? It's just one small chapter. But this is what it says. I always thank my God as I remember you in my prayers, because I hear about your love for all his holy people and your faith in the Lord Jesus. Paul's actually getting ready to ask him to do something pretty big. And you can tell he's kind of saying, I need to take you back to the fact that you've already shown yourself that you do this. You already invest in people's lives. What we don't know about the story right at the beginning is that he had a person who was working for him, a person who had enslaved themselves to him to be cared for, and he was working for them. Slavery was much different than maybe the impression we get. Many times people would say, yeah, I'll be your slave and I will do everything necessary, so I'm signing my life over to be your slave or your servant. And so this man, Onesimus, had signed his life over to Philemon to be his servant. And for some reason, things didn't work out so well between them. And Onesimus ended up leaving and not being his servant anymore. We believe that maybe Philemon sent Onesimus to Paul for Paul to straighten out. You ever had anybody like that? You know, I wish I could just send him over there. That would take care of it. Or, I wish I could send my kids over there. They'd take care of it. No, this is much different. Listen to the investment now that happens. The verses go on. I pray that your partnership with us in the faith may be effective in deepening your understanding of every good thing we share of the sake of Christ. I mean, this is in itself just saying, look, we partner together on the same things. It is so important to have partners around you that you know are with you in ministry and in the church. And so Paul knew that Philemon was one of these men that he could partner with. The verses go on. Later on into the story, it says, I appeal to you for my son Onesimus, who became my son while I was in chains. Formerly, he was useless to you. For some reason, Onesimus was useless to Philemon, and, it just didn't work, We could call him Phil and Oni, if that would help you remember their names. But the idea comes down to it that he said, formerly he was useless to you, but now he has become useful both to you and to me. Something's happened in Onesimus' life that has changed him. And when Philemon had at one point given up on him, Paul didn't give up on him. And when he came to him, he started working. And what you got to know about Paul here, Paul wasn't just living out there and could have a slave, whatever. No. Paul was in jail during this. Paul was in jail because he was preaching that Jesus rose from the dead, okay? And so Paul understands how great it was to have somebody to come visit, take care of him, all of that. But then it goes on, I am sending him who is my very heart. They've gotten really close. They've really gotten close, and there's a reason to it. He's sending him who has my very heart back to you. I would have liked to keep him with me so that he could take your place in helping me while I am in chains for the gospel. I mean, here he is there, and he kind of counted on Philemon to take care of him in the past. And he would always have a place to stay at Philemon's house whenever he went through there. But now he had to count on Onesimus, and he said, we've gotten close because of it. And he's here because he's taking care of me because I'm stuck. I started preaching and they put me in jail for it. But then the verses go on. So if you consider me a partner, now he kind of said, here's the ask in his life. He's asking him, if you consider me a partner, welcome him as you would welcome me. I'm sending him back to you. You got to welcome him as if I'm walking in the door. You may not feel like doing that because he's different, I know, but he's changed. He's not the same guy you remember. If he has done for you any wrong or owes you anything, charge it to me. Can I just tell you, this is the way you invest in people's lives. This is how Jesus invested in our lives. Paul could never get away from the example of Jesus in the way he lived his life. Jesus came and he died to be our substitute. And when we come to him and say, Jesus, I need you to forgive my sin and give me new life, what's he say? That's great. Just charge it to my account. I'll pay your debt. I'll take care of it. See, that's exactly what he did. He said, listen, I know he probably messed you up. I'll pay you back for whatever he owed. And then if you read the verses, and I won't include them, Paul says, but remember, I have invested a lot in you. So in other words, I know you're probably not going to charge me anything for this because you know how important it is. And then He wraps it up with this. He says, I know you're going to do it. I know you're going to honor it. I know you're going to invest in his life now because I've invested in him and now I'm passing it on. And he says, confident of your obedience. Obedience to who? To Jesus. You see, a disciple, being obedient is really the main call of our lives. Obeying Jesus to do what he calls us to do. He says, confident of your obedience, I write to you, knowing that you will do even more than I ask. You're going to go far beyond and take care of him, welcome him back in, and you're going to treat him differently. You won't treat him like he was just another slave or another employee. You're going to treat him different. So this is what happens. What does love require? What does love require of me? This is the question we ask a lot. If you go out those doors straight in front of me and you go out through the lobby, you see that written on the wall. That's a question I hope is on your mind all week long. What does love require of me? Because we've been talking give, serve, and love. And if you're going to follow Jesus, you're going to love him. And so you have to ask, what does love require of me? The love that Jesus had for us, what does that require of us in the way that we interact with each other and the way that we invest in people's lives? Because if we invest in their lives, we will get the opportunity to invite them to be a part of what God is doing in your life right here in this church. Just remember this. A follower of Jesus invests in the life of others. A follower of Jesus always, hear me? If you're claiming to be a follower of Jesus, you're not just here to learn. You need to learn, but let me explain this. You don't just learn for learning's sake. You learn to live. You learn to live it out and to invest in other people's lives. If you're gonna be rich in good deeds, like this campaign is all about and what the DNA of our church is all about, then you've got to be ready to give, to serve, and to love, because that's truly denying yourself, taking up your cross, and following him. That's what it looks like. Imagine what happens if just last week, well over 120 people sign up to be part of showing that kind of love. Imagine if everyone in the church did it. And imagine if when we left here, our main goal was to live, to serve, and love other people. Imagine what that could be. A follower of Jesus invests in the life of others. You know what? I could tell you this story over and over again. I could even give you something from my own life. But here is a kind of a setup like Philemon and Onesimus. I want you to hear from the two Jakes.
Hi, I'm Jake, and I'm the ministry lead here at Celebrate Recovery. And in Celebrate Recovery, we like to introduce ourselves like this. I'm Jake, a grateful follower of Christ who struggles with alcohol and depression. And this is
Jake. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with drugs and alcohol.
For me, I started my recovery journey 6 years ago. I was drinking a lot, trying to escape from myself, trying to self-medicate from the depression. And at that time, I had a strong believer walk into my life and really show me what recovery looked like and show me that I was loved by God. And it took me a while to accept that and to grow. And I'm at a point in my recovery now where I can work my recovery, and I really want to invest in other people. And so Jake and I have been friends probably for 10 years now. Knew him way back when, and we've come to Fair Creek together. And so when I had an opportunity to step out and help him, it was just God's calling on my life. And just trying to mirror what other people have shown me in my recovery. And I really feel like that's what our walk with Christ is leaning on others and then helping others that are that struggle.
I was actually saved back as a young teenager, and I just went back to, because I didn't grow up in a church environment or religion or rules and whatever. Most we ever done was pray over food, or my mom's mom, my grandma, we'd do the Jewish thing just to please her and have fun with the family. It was fun, but like I didn't have no church thing. But growing up right out of high school, I went off seeking God at a Bible school before I knew I had any problems. And I found him for real. And there's many a stories where he's stepped out and I came back and I put God on the shelf for whatever reason, and just kept living the way I know to live and put God on the shelf, and that's what brought me to where I am today. It was about two and a half years ago. I got in some trouble, put on felony paper, and was doing well, working, and just I couldn't get nothing under control, and I was facing 2.5 years of prison. I feel like God blessed me in a way where instead of having to go to prison, I got multiple opportunities, and the last one landed me in jail February of 22, and then going into treatment over at the Christopher House in March of 15th of 22, and that was a 2.5 month program, and then move on to sober living over at Christopher Park, and then I went home and started life. In the meantime, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and He helped me stop. He gave me a new way of thinking and new habits, new ways, new things. And I've been running from a call on my life, for real. I really have a call on my life, and I feel it on the inside. And this time around, like going to Christopher House has brought this awareness back, but if I don't do nothing with this awareness, it's nothing. So like in my own time, I've just been at home. You know, TV's good, Facebook's good, all these things that pull for our attention. And for me, it's attractions and distractions. I consciously choose to do less TV or no Facebook. Not saying none of that's bad or good, but I choose to make personal time and get in my word in the morning, making Him first. How can I put Him first? How can I think on Him all day long? We got work, family, friends, all this stuff going on. How can I fit Him in? And that's the way I think right now. Like, that's becoming so important that I got a bigger thirst and hunger to go after Him, you know, to seek Him, to knock. He says to seek, knock, and ask. And that's what I've been doing, and it ain't just a one-time thing.
It's one thing to study this and that. It's a whole nother thing to live it out as an example and teach it, and have somebody mirror it back and really see whether or not you mean what you say. And so I think Jake's helped me grow more in my recovery than I had previously.
We just started talking and meeting here, and then going through step work and just talking about stuff, you know, Bible stuff, life stuff. Jake's been a real big part of my life, and, you know, doing that, I'm able to do what he has shown me and give it away to someone else. I go and talk with my sponsee, Louie, and we just talk, we hang out, we go to meetings. I want to chill at home, and he calls, and it's like, what meeting are we going to? And I'm like, this one. So that kind of helps me a lot, you know, and just doing it, you don't even realize it, and life's going on, and he helps, the sponsee helps me more than I think I probably help him. I mean, I know I do the initial things, driving like they did for me, being there, answering the phone like they did for me, but like, it just shows, it gets you out of yourself. Because we're so used to, I want, take, what's in it for me type attitude, and that's all been changed through stepping out, doing something for someone else.
I missed several dinners, many dinners, lots of early mornings with Jake and other sponsees I have, but this investment and seeing the lives changed is so worth it. I mean, I can't say how much I'm excited to see what God's doing in Jake's life. And seeing that growth, it sort of recharges my batteries to see other people turning their lives over to Christ and getting sober and rebuilding their lives. And so that is so much more reward than you could ever get from whatever else you've sacrificed for it.
I think it's really important that people step out and invest in other people's lives, because most of all, our Father invested in each and every one of our lives by giving Christ, that died and shed his blood on that cross for us. Love you. I'm grateful for that, and I just want to follow his example.
I think it's absolutely essential to our faith that we invest in other people, because it helps us grow and it spreads the faith to others through our actions. Jake, I just have to say I am so proud to see what God's doing in your life. I'm honored to be a part of that, and you just shine, God, in everything you do, and it's just amazing to see the transformation in your life, and like I said, I'm honored to be part of that.
Well, Jake, I'm honored that you're in my life as well. I couldn't do this without you. All my life I always do things myself or think I got it all together doing it, and this has shown me that I don't have to do this alone, and I am grateful to God for putting you in my life.
Hi, I'm Jake.
And I'm Jake.
And we're just people for real people.
I mean, what an amazing story of two guys who have definitely benefited from people investing, taking time to invest in their lives, and from being able to then turn that back and start trying to invest in the lives of others as well. Now, we did not plan that they would both be named Jake, so even if your name's not Jake, you still can do this. Just want you to know that. Look, I realize that investing in people is something that we talk about a lot around here, I think. But you might be sitting there thinking this morning kind of like, well, that sounds great and all, but like how? What do I actually do? What does that look like? Where is that going to fit into my schedule? And some of those kinds of things. Well, there are some things that we're going to have to make sure that we clear out of the way in order for this to be possible. First, we have to rid ourselves of the notion that we don't have time for it. We all have exactly the same amount of time, as Greg said last week. Nobody gets more, nobody gets less, and we choose what we are going to do with that time. And there are lots of things that are vying for our time. Some of those things, I completely understand. Some of those things we don't feel we have the freedom to say no to. But everything is a choice. The amount of margin that we have in our lives is a direct reflection of the choices that we make. And somehow, we usually seem to have time for the things that we value. If we value it, we make time for it. And if we don't value people, then we have our priorities out of whack. I guess I don't have a whole lot of time, so we're just going to get right after it. That's just come straight with it. I want to let you all in on a little secret, okay? If at any point in these last few years, or maybe even beyond that, you have thought, man, people just seem more angry, more upset, more divided against each other, more frustrated, more antagonistic than I can ever remember people being. Here's the reason why. The reason that it's so easy to point fingers and to make fun of someone, the reason it's so easy to comment nasty things on social media, the reason why someone can film something horrible happening to somebody on their phone but not try to help, the reason that news organizations fixate on negative headlines is because we don't value people. I mean, we value who we know and love, sure, but everybody else, you better look out. And this may not be surprising to anybody, but negative headlines get more clicks and negative video titles get more views. In fact, a study has actually shown, several studies have shown that each negative word that appears in a headline increases the engagement for that article or video by 2 to 3%. Every negative word. So why not have 2, 3, 4, 5 negative words? It increases by 2 to 3% for each word. And words that have a positive connotation actually decrease engagement. So why are we drawn to focus on people's worst moments while giving little or no attention to their accomplishments? I think it's because we don't value people the way we ought to. But we are instructed to invest in the lives of others. We are to be disciples that make disciples, not just people who know the stuff that we know, but we are to be disciples that make disciples that are capable of making even more disciples. We see this from Jesus. He tells us this in Matthew 28. We hear this from Paul in 2 Timothy 2, as well as in other places. And if we are going to do that, then we have to value people. People who go to church and people who don't. People who know and love Jesus and people who wish you would stop talking about him. And here's another thing, though, that I think stops us from investing in people. Genuine connection with other people requires vulnerability. And we don't like to be vulnerable. We don't like to admit our faults. We don't like to talk about our failures and, the setbacks that we have faced in our lives. But this inability to be vulnerable keeps us from being real, and it stops authentic connections. Connections that are necessary to be able to really invest in someone's life. If you don't value people and how your life experiences could possibly be a benefit to others, then you likely won't allow yourself to be vulnerable with them. But look, the mentality of, hey, nobody did that for me and I made it, right? This is not a mentality that values people. If you find yourself thinking at any point, and it's kind of a natural thing to think, don't get me wrong, but if you find yourself at any point thinking, oh, look, nobody reached out and gave me a hand, and I had to figure it out, and I had to get by, so why should I do that for somebody else? If you ever find yourself thinking that, be willing to do for someone what you wish someone had been willing to do for you. Now, again, all of this, I understand, is going to take time. We have to be willing to set aside time. But this doesn't mean that you just have to completely clear your schedules out, never do anything, just kind of sit around waiting for life to come at you. Like, I'm just going to not do anything ever. Now, you may need to create margin in your life so that you're not just jam-packed busy all the time. In fact, I would encourage you to do that. But this also means being flexible. I mean, think about all the times that Jesus performed a miracle, healed somebody, had a life-altering, life-changing interaction with someone when he was on his way from one place to another place. But we never catch Jesus saying, hey, you know what? Like, I would really love to sit here and talk to you, but like, I was just on my way to this guy's house, and like, we've got a meeting scheduled. Like, I really just I got a thing I got to get to. Like, I got stuff I got to do. I got to keep my appointments and everything. Like, we just, maybe I'll run it, I'll stop by and get you next time I'm coming through town. Like, what would that have looked like? It takes days, weeks, months to walk someplace. We never see him doing that. Now, another reason that we struggle to take the time to invest in people is because we also don't get instant results when we do that. And we are a people of instant gratification, right? I mean, but the thing is, people and relationships, they just don't work like that. Sometimes we invest years and sweat and tears and emotion only to have people disappoint us and sometimes hurt us. But great relationships, they don't form in an instant, do they? But, it's just easier to stick with the people that you already know that you like, or just keep to yourself. That would be much easier. But again, this communicates at best that you value some people, but not all people. Now, we asked the question, and Greg mentioned this earlier, right? What does love require of me? We talk about this all the time, and I think that it applies very much here as well. If we are to love everyone, then we should value people so much that we are willing to make an investment in someone else's life, even if, in fact, especially if it's an inconvenience to us. Stop and have a conversation with them. Invite them over for dinner. Share how your relationship with Jesus has impacted your life. Go and do something that they like to do, even if it's not really your thing. Just don't, not into that kind of stuff. That's what investing looks like. Invest in them and invite them. Invite them to church. Invite them into a relationship with Jesus if you have one to share with them. But we also have to be careful of something else here at this point. You don't make people your project. You earn the right to invest in them. That is part of the investment. See, making someone a project to be fixed communicates the opposite of value. In fact, it actually communicates that you value feeling good about yourself. It communicates that you value making people or getting people to become the type of friend that you'd be willing to hang out with and spend time with. But not that you actually value the person that's standing in front of you. Now, and also something else about that, you don't have to agree with everything that a person thinks or says or does in order to value them as a person. But it's up to us, it's up to me, it's up to you to show them that you do value them. Now, all of these things that we talked about are the reason why Be Rich has looked a little bit different this year. Because we don't want to do a campaign, like Greg said, we don't want to do a campaign once a year so that we can kind of feel like we've done our part, right? That's the one time of the year where I dedicate myself to really focusing on someone other than me. We want this to be a part of the very core of who we are as a group of people. We want this to be at the core of who each and every one of us are as individuals. So let me ask, who are you investing in? I hope that in your mind somebody comes to mind and you can think of someone. But I don't want anybody to walk away from here today thinking, I just don't have really a whole lot of people in my life. I'm not all that interested in bringing any new people into the circle, so I'll just kind of check. I'll move on from that. I don't need to worry about this one. If you value the people in your life, then you will invest in them in a positive way. And if you don't value the people that cross your path enough to do that, then I'm going to tell you your priorities are way off. Now, if you are looking for a way to invest, we've got lots of ways and lots of opportunities to help you that you can connect with in order to do that. You can go to our app. You can fill out a serve form. You can go to the Be Rich page and nominate someone for a You Got Served project. Go sign up to be on a You Got Served project team. You can sign up to invest in the next generation and serve with kids or students. I mean, how exciting to hear about how many people have stepped up to do that. But there's still more room. We never have enough people investing in the next generation. You can do that. You can literally get out your phones right now and you can go sign up for one of these things. But I believe in each and every one of you. I know that you can find ways to invest in people in your everyday lives as well. So let me just finish with this, and then we're actually going to sing a song together. I hope that something that you have heard this morning has really struck deep in your heart and got you thinking about how you can make a deeper investment in the lives of the people around you. But the chief motivator for this is Jesus. And Greg talked about how that was the chief motivator for Paul, for Philemon, for all of these folks. The chief motivator is Jesus because of his great love that he has had for us, the sacrifices that he was known to make for the people that he came in contact with, the sacrifice that he made for all of us. His love for us should inspire us to love like he did, to care for people the way he did, to place the type of value on people that he placed on them. There was nothing more important to Jesus than people.